Right now is the best time to buy a house in the next 5 years. Right now.
So why is Dave Ramsey, one of the most conservative talk show hosts there are out there, telling you right now is the best time to buy a house in the next 5 years? Well, he's obviously better than he deserves, right? We can all see that. But he has some thoughts on this market, so let's jump into them. Before we jump into this video, if you like this video, if you find it informational, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment down below. Really helps out the channel. Let's jump into it. Dave is a financial guru who is ultra conservative in his principles and practices and advice. And so he started out in the late 80s amassing a great wealth of real estate. And what happened was Dave became over leveraged. What this means is basically he had too much debt and couldn't pay it when the bank called and said he needed to pay it. And this was kind of a unique circumstance because debts were changing between banks, and basically they were like, hey, we need to pay all that debt off right now. It's not an ideal situation, not what he planned on. He planned on paying it over years. But again, he became over leveraged, had to file bankruptcy after amassing this wealth right in the beginning, and had to start from scratch again. And what happened from there was Dave's principles changed. He became ultra conservative in his principles and his lifestyle, right? Because he knew the side of being more aggressive, and that led him to bankruptcy and probably a low point in his life. So he decided to become ultra conservative, and in that time he started financial planning. He started a company in the late 80s, started just working with his church members, building his massive wealth that he has today, and he has no debt today. So he has a multi-million-dollar studio, he's got houses, he's got cars, he has no debt at all, and that's thanks to his conservative principles, right? It took him a while to get there, but again, he's sitting pretty, he doesn't have any debt. With that being said, this is why it's interesting that he's coming out and saying,
right now is the best time to buy a house in the next 5 years.
People think that the market is shifting, which it very much is, but people think that the market is in a bubble and the bubble's gonna pop, and they want the bubble to pop so real estate prices can come down so that they can afford a house again. Well, Dave doesn't think prices are the bubble. Dave goes on and says that it's not the price that's the bubble, it is the price amount that goes up percentage-wise year over year that is the bubble. And so we saw last year prices go up 30% year over year in the Phoenix metropolitan market. And he thinks that that's the bubble, and it's no longer going to continue that crazy parabolic graph of pricing, right? He said that's going to be the thing that slows down. With that being said, that does not mean a $500,000 house today next year is going to be worth $475,000. Instead of it going up 30% year over year, it might go up 8% year over year. And so that $500,000 house is going to be worth maybe $540,000 next year. And along the way, people are predicting the percentage gains year over year, right, for the next few years. And so what he's saying is prices are not going to come down. There's still a shortage of inventory. It's just going to go up like 8% this year, maybe 5% the next year, maybe 2% the year after that. And so in the next 5 years, we're not going to see prices go down. Dave doesn't think. He thinks that prices are going to continue to go up, but just at a much slower rate. Therefore, the price of a house is going to be the cheapest it is today in the next 5 years, is what he says, right? Another thing to point out here is Dave is not saying it, but it's implied just by knowing his ultra kind of conservative strategy. You need to be able to afford the house that you're in. So don't get house poor to go and get in a house because you have FOMO and fear of missing out on getting in this housing market. You still need to be able to afford the house that you're in. So whether the interest rates are crazy high and prices have gone up, as long as you can find a house that's cheap enough with the interest rate that it is right now, you should just be able to afford the house that you're in. So if that's $1,500 a month and that's where you want to stick, then find out a mortgage calculator and plug in the numbers to see what you can afford and go look for that. That is what he's implying. And so let's talk about a scenario in which prices might go down. So one thing that we are playing with right now is a crazy inflation rate. And what that does is it causes the Fed to raise interest rates so that people will spend less money, basically bringing prices down. the Fed is raising interest rates, but to deal with inflation, we just came out with the CPI, the Consumer Pricing Index, basically showing how much inflation has gone up, and we're still showing inflation has not peaked yet. So the Fed really wants to get that under control. The only problem with the Fed raising interest rates as much as they are and want to get inflation down is the United States debt is tied to these interest rates. What that means is the $20 trillion in debt that the United States is, 80% of that is to our own people and bonds and things like that. But still, $20 trillion in debt, they have to pay monthly payments on that. And so they've got a floating rate. So as you know, whatever the interest rates are, that's kind of what they're paying. So eventually this could come to a head and the government could go to the Fed and say, hey, stop raising interest rates. We actually need you to decrease them because we can't afford our payments and we're not going to just collapse as a country, our whole economic system. So we're going to need you to lower interest rates again. And if that were the case, then we're going to see another huge bull run, I think, because it's going to cause people to want to spend more. It's going to cause, kind of stimulate the economy more to lower those interest rates, and we'll see what happens. But in that case, I think there still is a possibility that prices could go down in the next few years, but it really just depends on how crazy the Fed gets with raising interest rates, as well as what the government does in response to that. And ultimately, this is a supply issue. I come out with weekly market updates. We're up over 11,000 houses on the market active right now, which is a huge change from where we were, under 5,000 houses on the market for weeks and weeks and weeks. For so long when it was at the height of the market, but we're still seeing the market kind of balance out and shift. And just because the market is shifting does not mean that it is going to crash or that there is a bubble. This is what the Fed has planned for. So that is why Dave Ramsey thinks right now is the best time to buy a house, because he thinks that these prices are not going to come down. He thinks that they're going to slowly continue to rise, but just at a much slower pace than they are. And if interest rates do go up, then you'll be glad you bought right now, because you're locked in at a 5.5 or whatever it is right now. And if they go down, his thought is just refinance and lower your payment when it comes to it. So that is why Dave Ramsey wants you to buy a house right now. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and subscribe, like it. If you have a question, leave it down in the comment section down below. My name is Riley with Team CR Realty, where Arizona real estate is seen.